Frid och shalom vänner, det är den 7 januari idag och jag ska vara väldigt kort, men det kommer ett långt klipp här nu med James Kaddis. Och det är en skakande berättelse om vad vi har framför oss, det antikristliga systemet. Och en del tror ju att vi ska ryckas bort ifrån det och slippa se det. Men Elvor och jag tror att vi kommer att bli beskyddade och gå igenom detta. Vi får se vem som har rätt. I alla fall så kommer det en newsflash då som vanligt i slutet. Gud välsigna er idag nu. Amen.
Of dates that I didn't talk about because they're important and they're going to go into one of our very first discussions, and that is this, March 10th. While Saudi Arabia agrees to start diplomatic ties again with Iran, on that same day, there was a small bank by the name of Silicon Valley Bank, right, that actually collapsed. They collapsed over the weekend. They declared insolvency. Now, the interesting part about this insolvency variable taking place is you have a big problem. Let me explain to you what happens with insolvency, and we'll talk about why that's a significant variable in just a second, okay? When a bank goes insolvent, the biggest problem that you have for the society that surrounds the bank are the depositors in the bank, okay? You have, each and every single one of you have money. You keep that money in a bank. And the problem is this: if you have a situation where your money cannot be pulled out of the bank whenever you want your money to be pulled out of the bank, then you will panic. And what you will do is you will run to that bank, you will seek to get that money out of the bank, and in doing so, the panic that ensues will create a crisis because that bank will not be able to have the money in order to meet the needs of their depositors. So let me give you an idea of how this works with a lot of banks. If I'm a bank and you come to me and I have a total amount of money in my bank of $200 billion, let's just say that, right? And those are all the depositors. That's the totality of all the depositors in my bank. Then according to the law, there's a certain percentage of that $200 billion that I need to keep inside of the bank, right, in order to be able to give to people who are asking for, a withdrawal, right? And so I have to be able to meet that need, right? But if I am experienced in what I do as a bank, and I know exactly what the general ebbs and flows are, and I know what happens when people panic during times of difficulty, like COVID, for example, or different things like that, then I'll know generally how much stock I need to keep in my bank. And if you're really good at what you'll do, you'll actually seek to find a risk management mechanism that you deploy that keeps you from keeping too much money in or not putting too much money out. Here's the problem. If you take all that money and you keep it, then your depositors are going to go broke because you have no way of growing that money. And with the rate of inflation, your depositors are not going to keep up with the money that they put into the bank, right? So that can be a problem. But if you put too much of it out and something happens, then you create a much bigger problem. So what do banks typically do? They go the relatively conservative route, at least it used to be the relatively conservative route because of the credit condition of our country. They would go and they would buy treasury notes, okay, or treasury bonds. So what happens is they go to the government, they buy these treasury bonds. These treasury bonds promise a certain level of growth within a certain time period, okay? So let's just say that right now I have $100 billion in the bank, even though I have $200 billion worth of deposits in the bank. And I take some of those treasury bonds, which happens to be the most conservative of my investments, and I buy those bonds understanding that the maturity rate is fixed, but it's limited based on a time period. So in other words, I buy these treasury notes, they will mature and give me a greater yield after a certain period of time. Let's just say 6 months, right? And by the way, if you do any futures trading or you're looking at the stochastics and stock market trading and all that stuff, you're always going to understand where you should go in the general ebb and flow and how the deltas work in the market if you understand the direction of where futures are tied for treasury bonds, okay? Very kind of important to understand where the government's going to go and how much they're paying and how much they're not. And when credit ratings drop, then that means treasury notes go down. And there's all kinds of things that happen that you can look at to make certain assessments about where you're going to go and where you're not going to go. So this is all very important stuff. So if I am a bank and I have certain money out in treasury bonds, and then all of a sudden I decide that I'm going to do some very risky things. I'm going to bring in some Silicon Valley startups. I'm going to take in all of their money. under the assumption that there will be crazy, we'll just call them venture capitalists, right? They come in and they buy some of your stock for your private or public traded companies, right? And in doing so, they begin to bolster up what appears to be the economic strength of your company, right? What happens is your company will then take a lot of that money, put it right back into the bank, and then understanding the strength of that company and understanding how much money they're bringing in, you'll take some of that money and you'll put it in different places. In the case of Silicon Valley Bank, they were more concerned about diversity, inclusion, and all this other stuff, and they were spending a whole bunch of their money in areas where they should not have been spending their money and doing things that they were not supposed to be doing. The problem is you have a situation, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but you have a situation where a couple of these companies say, I'm really concerned about the direction you're going in, Mr. Bank, and I want my money back. Okay, this is my money. This is what I have in the bank. So what they end up doing is they end up going to get their money. Okay, and as they go to get their money, what they're actually getting represents an overwhelming majority of what they have left in the bank for liquid assets. Now, what ends up happening is, and this is my conspiracy, okay, a competing banker like maybe Jamie Dimon, I'm not saying he did this. I would never say that he did this, right? Might drop a hint in a few people's ears that these depositors who are big companies are going back to the bank to get their money. All the other bank people that have their money in there begin to panic and they say, I should get my money out of there. But they don't really do anything yet because they're not seeing any real movement. The bank itself says, uh-oh, we are going to be insolvent because we have $100 billion of our bank assets being called out by depositors who want that money back. But we only have $100 billion in the bank, and if we give all of that to them, we're not going to work. Everything's going to break. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to go to other banks or other people, and we are going to sell our treasury notes. Now that treasury note might be worth $1,000. Let's just talk about one individual treasury note. That treasury note might, let's just say this, might be worth $1 million. The value of that treasury note is $1 million as it sits and will eventually pay out $1,200,000. But I, as SVB, am panicked about the fact that I need liquid assets. So what do? I rush to sell those treasury notes, pennies on the dollar. And that $1 million treasury note will be sold to somebody else for $100,000. The problem is you start to sell enough treasury notes at that level, the value of the note itself will decline. And as the value of the note itself declines, then you begin to realize that the value of the money that you're bringing in the first place to get yourself out of problems, the borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, is actually going to create a condition of insolvency in your bank where the depositors are going to see it, they're going to freak out, they're going to panic, and they're going to run to it. Now, here's the terrible part, okay? Here's where it gets really ugly, okay? If you're smart, and you're a government, and you actually begin to see the condition of insolvency take place in a company that typically only deals with venture capitalists, then the smart idea would be to let it fail for the most part and insure under FDIC some of the depositors that might be losing their money, like the people who are the blue-collared workers that have a few of their dollars in there and can't buy their next lunch without it. Instead, what do? They say, we're going to pay for all of it, and we're going to cover all of it. And why would they do that? The only reason why they would want to do that is if they want to destroy cash as a whole. There is no other reason why they would want to do that unless they want to destroy cash as a whole, which, by the way, we have seen that happen with multiple banks now. Understand, 3 of the largest bank failures that have happened in United States history have happened in 2023. Okay? At least they compete with some of the bank failures we saw in 2008. One of them surpasses that, and it's way worse than anything that we saw during the Great Depression. That becomes significant for us. And why does that become significant? Because in Revelation 13, we learn about a world where that exactly is going to happen. Now, here's the bigger problem that we have. When you have bank insolvency begin to take place at that level, you also begin to have panic settling in. And when panic settles in, you begin to see an increase in crime because people will begin to exploit the condition that insolvency creates. And when that begins to happen, then companies begin to get creative on how money is actually exchanged. Now, whether or not you know this or recognize this, the banks in 2023 made a change that we have never seen in the history of banking ever, and that is the use of CBDCs, okay? I want everybody to understand this. I want you, if you can, CJ, to find the video of the central banker. I think you have that up there. Do you have that? I think it's called Central Banker. Where is that? Okay, can you put that up for me? Let's play that really quick.
Now, in all our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash. And there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that.
Okay. Now, I want you to get this, okay? Because when people see this, what they actually think is it refers to the money that's in your pocket, and what this is actually talking about when he's talking about CBDCs, he is talking about the currency that travels between banks. By the way, right now, most banks are running with this currency. Most of it, okay? Including the central bank. Why? Because they want to start the process of being able to track how you are buying and how you are selling. And it's getting to the point right now where there are some parts of the country and many parts right here next to Long Beach where now you can't buy anything unless you do it the way that they want you to do it, cashless. Everything is that way. It's becoming that way, and it's happening more and more and more and more. And we'll get into why that's significant biblically in just a second. Let me give you a commercial. I want to play this commercial for you because this is a commercial that actually was aired years ago. This was a commercial that was aired 3 or 4 years ago, and nobody, they thought, something in the future, not a big deal. I want to play this commercial for you. This is a product called Amazon One. Now, when I play this for you, I want you to pay attention to what it says. And some of you might already know what it is because some of you might already utilize the service. If you shop at an Amazon Fresh store and you use their features, you are using Amazon One. And I want you to understand something. If you are buying a piece of string cheese and you are taking half a bite of that string cheese, they're going to know if you ate it all or if you didn't based on your buying patterns as Amazon One controls things. Everything is ran in their stocking system based on patterns that they observe in purchases. Okay? Watch this.
This is Zoe. Just like you, she uses lots of different cards and IDs to get through her day. What if all Zoe needed was herself? Introducing Amazon One, a free service that lets you use your palm to quickly pay for things, gain access, earn rewards, and more. Let's say you're grabbing your favorite coffee beverage, or heading into the office, or checking out. Just hover your palm and you're on your way. It's as easy as that. Sign up is free and takes less than a minute. All you need is a credit card, your phone number, and your palm. That's it. Since your palm is unique and can't be lost or misplaced, you can get things done quickly and securely. And with more experiences on the way, Amazon One will help you get even more done, simply by being you. Now, Zoe has more time to do what she loves, indoor skydiving. Enter, identify, and pay with Amazon One.
By the way, this type of technology is old. Okay, like I want you to understand that. This type of technology is super old because the type of things that they are doing now involve implanted microchips. Okay, what the type of things that they're doing right now are involving pills that you actually swallow that have the ability to carry information that's associated with your activity, and it even implements within it biomechanical engineering that is involved in things that you do on a day-to-day basis. If you don't believe me, I want you to watch this video of the CEO of Pfizer. You ready for this? This is 6 years ago. And I've played this for you before. 6 years ago, look at what the CEO of Pfizer is actually saying. I'm going to go somewhere with this, by the way. Watch this.
Basically biological chip that it is in the tablet. And once you take the tablet and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, compliance. The insurance companies to know that the medicines that patients should take, they do.
Compliance. Notice that. The buzzword is compliance. And folks, there's technology now that involves a tattoo that you can put on your hand that has the ability to carry enough information about you to interface with worldwide computers that hold all of your information, passport information and all of that. And the moment that tattoo is broken on your skin, they'll know about it, right? That stuff exists. By the way, that's old tech. I want you to understand that tattoo technology developed by DARPA before that was developed. Okay? I want you to understand. And we have videos of that. I don't have the time to show you because we have so many things going on. Now, let's just pretend you happen to be somebody that says, I don't want to deal with any of that stuff, and I'm not listening to that stuff. I'm not paying attention to that stuff. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. Do you understand that they're also right now researching ways to make you comply whether or not you even know you're complying? Did you know that? How about we talk about technology like this? I've shown you guys this video before. Many of you might not remember it. Let's bring up the winged microchip video. And I want you to understand how small this is. Now, before we play it, I just want you to understand this flying microchip that we're talking about, which, by the way, is in mass production already. This flying microchip, if you took the tip of your pin, right? It was a ballpoint pin, and you put that on top of the tip of your pin, you could probably fit 2 of them there. So if these were in the air, you would not know they were in the air. And if you breathed them in, you would not know you were breathing them in. Okay? So let's watch this 2-minute video. This is very interesting. Watch this.
And that has the effect of increasing the dispersal distance from the tree. And that's the name of the game, is spreading the seeds as far as possible.
This is Northwestern University that's taken this up. Yes, this is the Northwestern of Chicago. Yes, the Northwestern of Chicago that is heavily funded by Obama's organization, okay? Just understand that for just a second. And it is a very, very globalist project. We'll get into that in just a minute.
The goal of this project has been to add capability for winged flight to electronic circuit chips, with the idea that those capabilities would allow us to distribute highly functional but miniaturized electronic devices that could sense the environment for disease tracking, population surveillance, maybe monitoring of environmental contamination, and so on. So the objects that we've created consist of 2 parts. One is an electronic functional component that has an overall size scale in the range of 1 millimeter. So almost like a tiny grain of sand. But we've integrated with that electronic chip wing structures that form almost what looks like a helicopter. And so as these structures fall through the air, in interaction between the air and those wings cause a rotational motion that creates a very stable, slow falling velocity that allows these structures to interact for extended periods with ambient wind that really enhances the dispersal process, much like seeds do in the biological world. We think we've beaten biology in a sense.
Isn't it astounding how he actually says, I think we've beat biology, right? And by the way, so that you understand, the complexities associated with this chip that can barely be seen by the human eye are remarkable. What they are capable of doing and what they have the ability of being able to carry. Do you understand that you can take these chips, you can get into the troposphere if you wanted to, and they have the durability to be able to do this, release them into the air and let them go wherever the air wants it to go. They can go everywhere. okay? And if you think that that's an exaggeration, it's not. That's the reality of the world that we're facing. Now, I want to stop for a second because I want to read this, because this is important to you. Revelation chapter 13. Let me read this to you. By the way, this is talking about the Antichrist, okay? And the Antichrist did what? He opened his mouth in blasphemy against God to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given to him to make war, right? Given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given to him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, that all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life, slain from the foundation of the world. Okay? By the way, let me scoot down to talk about what it says here. Okay? Verse 15, or verse 16, he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. By the way, it reads in the King James, it actually means on, right? So it's a literal tattoo that goes on there. It's a marking. That no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Hear his wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of man, and his number is 666. Okay. So people oftentimes ask me, James, where do you get the idea that we're going to have a cashless society? Think about it like this, folks. You cannot enforce being able to buy or sell unless you have a cashless society. It doesn't work, okay? You have to have a cashless society. And the rapid pace in which we are moving into that direction is absolutely astounding. Now, there's another thing that I want to bring up because this is important, okay? The word Antichrist means instead of Christ, not against Christ, okay? Instead of is way worse than against, okay? I just want you to understand that, okay? Instead of means you replace him, you get rid of him. You put something else in front of him so where he is obsolete and nobody thinks of him, right? And I think it's also very, very important to understand this, right? Like critical to understand this. This man, this Antichrist that's coming, will do exactly that. He will make the collective consciousness of God be removed from the people by replacing God with himself, okay? Because that's what the spirit of Antichrist is all about. The Bible says that the spirit of Antichrist exists in this world today, and that's what the spirit of Antichrist is, replacing God. By the way, you understand the spirit of Antichrist is in materialism? The spirit of Antichrist is in everything. I want to say this for the record. I would love nothing more than to walk out in the parking lot and see all of you have expensive, awesome, incredible cars, right? I would love to see you have $100,000 cars. I'd love to see you in $1 million homes, all of that. But I would much rather that you have a little pinto, if you know what I mean, right? And you're on a motorcycle if it means that you are worshiping that instead of the true and living God. But if you come in fancy cars and you have these awesome homes and you are glorifying God with it and you're praising God and you're saying to God be the glory, then every single time I see a super rich car come through, I'm like, praise the Lord, okay? Those things in the materialistic world in which we live have replaced God. That is the spirit of Antichrist, okay? Is there anything wrong with you having a nice car? No, I wish you all had one. Okay, which a lot of you do, and praise God for that. Do I want you to have a lot of money to be able to invest for the kingdom? Heck yes, I do. I want you all to do well. But here's the problem. When it replaces God in your life, then I want you to go so poor that you can't even pay attention, right? Why? Because I want you to be thinking about the true and living God who gave you everything that you had, right? Come on, do you honestly think that, I mean, think about this. I'm not a health and wealth teacher, right? But I would love nothing more than to have a church filled with absolutely filthy rich people, right? That love God with all of their heart. Because you know what that would mean? That would mean we would have a force of people that would use the gifts that God has given them to make a massive change in this world, right? I want people like that. I with all my heart. But I don't want those people at the expense of loving those things rather than loving God. Okay? Very important to understand this. So, when we play this, I want you to understand in this series of 9 videos that I'm going to play for you, they're going to feature one man. His name is Yuval Harari. Now, he is a Jewish man. He is married to another man, okay? And he is the epitome of what the spirit of Antichrist is all about. He is an absolute God hater, okay? Let me also say this, because this is very important. When you start talking about the World Economic Forum, they are perhaps one of the most evil organizations in existence, ran by one of the most evil men alive, okay? Klaus Schwab is not a good guy. He's a very evil guy. And I also want to mention this. The CEO of Pfizer that you saw speaking, he was at a World Economic Forum event when he was speaking that, okay? A lot of the technology that you've been seeing has been developed at the hands or the wishes of the World Economic Forum in order to facilitate a world of globalism, including what you see with Amazon. So Klaus Schwab is perhaps the most favored advisor in the World Economic Forum. He is their loudest mouthpiece. Yuval Harari has the greatest influence in Klaus Schwab's life and in his leadership team than any other person. By the way, what's interesting about Yuval that just blows my mind is the guy is a stinking history teacher. Okay? But he's grown in prominence because of a couple of books that he wrote, and people worship the ground that he walks on. They actually call him a prophet. Okay? And I want you to understand that he is probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest examples in existence right now in this world of what the spirit of Antichrist looks like when it's manifested, okay? So every one of these videos are going to feature him, okay? And I want you guys to see this. By the way, this is Yuval Harari having a conversation in the UK with some young kids about the subject of AI, okay? Artificial intelligence. So let's get into that real quickly, and then we'll go to the next one.
They could take away from that what they want to take away, and they could take away that emotional aspect. So I think it's completely down to the humans and the way that we treat these kinds of things.
I think relating to that, if you look at human relationships, one of the things that make it very difficult to build a relationship with humans, and this is very ironic, of course, but I think this is the case, is that they have emotions of their own.
Yeah.
So like when we talk, so constantly in the back of my mind, there is this voice saying like, I want the attention,
yeah.
I want to say this, and I'm constantly kind of interrupted by my own emotions or thoughts, so I cannot focus 100% on you.
Right.
And the dream of, I think, almost every human in almost every relationship, the dream is to be kind of fully seen and heard and understood by someone else. And I'm frustrated that they don't, because they have their own emotions, which interrupt.
And AI
with an AI, it doesn't have these interrupting emotions. It can give us 100% of its attention.
I want you to understand what he's doing, because this is important before we play the second video. I want you to understand that he is making a very aggressive case, and it's an important case for us to recognize, right? He is making a very aggressive case for removing God from the collective consciousness of the world. He hates God, make no mistake about it, and you're going to see evidence of this in just a second. And he wants to do it through AI, okay? And I'm going to combat a specific contention that he makes, which, by the way, I just want everybody to understand this. The last Yuval Harari video that I made got so many views and was so effective that he filed a complaint with YouTube against me and tried to get me stricken. And so I made the conscious decision that I was going to pull it out and put it on Rumble and leave it alone. This time I'm prepared to fight him, okay? And I want you to, or his organization that represents him, okay? Because this is unbelievably fair use. I just want everybody to understand this. I'm commenting on some very public comments that were made, and we are. I just want to say that for the record. So let's get into number 2 here. This is a 30-second clip, and this clip is very telling. Let's pay attention to what he says here.
Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some God above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud. These are the new driving forces of evolution. And at the same time, science may enable life.
Do you understand the conspiracy of Satan here? Do you guys get it? Let me just help you articulate it a little clearer in your mind. Satan for the last 100 years has been telling us that we came from monkeys through the process of natural selection, evolution. The devil has been wanting us to throw away the idea of intelligent design and to minimize where we came from. And he wants us to believe evolution. As we get to the end times, as we are now in the last days, he is now taking what he knows is true, and he's getting us, now that we've believed that we came from natural selection, he is now beginning to get us to believe that intelligent design had something to do with it, but it's our intelligent design and not God's. Okay? I want to make you aware of something critical here. Nothing that we have ever created in the history of mankind is as complex as DNA. Nothing that we have ever created in mankind is as complex as the type of proteins that repair themselves. But you know what the devil is doing here? You guys catching this? You believe that you came from a monkey, and then once you have expanded into this new world, they want you to believe that you are God because of what you've created in the cloud. When in reality, what exists in the cloud is a stupid version of what God has done and can never be greater or more complex than the Creator. And notice how he was quick to say, we are now becoming a product of intelligent design, not by God. Notice how quickly he said that. If you think he's messing around, look at number 3. Let's play that.
Next big projects of humankind will be to overcome old age and death, to find the keys, the secret to happiness, and to basically upgrade humans into gods. This is why the title Homo Deus, God-man. And I don't mean it as a kind of literary metaphor. I mean it in the literal sense that for thousands of years, humans have imagined gods in a particular way. They ascribed particular abilities and qualities to gods. And we are here in a church, and the walls are full of these descriptions of what God can do. And we are now seriously in the business of acquiring these traditional divine abilities and qualities to ourselves. So all these animals, all these plants, God created them, and they are all organic. Now humans are trying to do better than that. We will not just gain the ability to create these organic beings that's been around for 4 billion years. We are in the process of learning how to create the first inorganic entities, inorganic beings like artificial intelligence that ever existed. So in this sense, it's a literal claim that humans are trying to upgrade themselves into gods.
This is what happens when you get a history teacher that's willing to be used by the devil that doesn't know his head from his butt when it comes to science, right? He has no idea. Okay, again, science confirms what God's word says. God's word doesn't confirm science. And any real scientist that's worth a dime will laugh at a man that says the complexities of organics are nowhere near the complexities of inorganics. You know the only time where that is true? The inorganic complexities being more complex than that which is organic is the living soul that God breathed into mankind, which scientists and philosophers cannot explain. Okay, so let's get real for a second. Okay, let's just better understand what he is saying here. Now let's go to the fourth one, because if you thought that was crazy, by the way, this is a growing. I'm making them worse and worse and worse. Okay, there's a purpose for the order. So let's get into the next one. You'll love this one. Let's go into the next one, and this one will prove to be somewhat entertaining when you see how much he hates God, the God of his fathers. And by the way, I want to say this for everybody that thinks he's the Antichrist. Understand. If you know the Bible, you'll know that that can't be possible. He's a Jew, okay? The Antichrist that we know that's coming is probably coming out of Europe. He's definitely a Gentile, okay? So just understand that. But he's a great predecessor, okay? He embodies the spirit of Antichrist, and he's very good at this because he loves his father, the devil, okay? Understand that. So, and he's a great tool in the hands of the World Economic Forum. He is, okay? All right, let's go to the next guy.
people can change their views very fast and they can discover hidden reservoirs of trust. You look in this crisis, who do people trust? They trust scientists above everything else in all countries. In Israel, they closed down the synagogues. In Iran, they closed the mosques. Churches all over the world are telling people don't come to church. The Pope is doing all these ceremonies on Zoom or YouTube. And why do they do all this? Because the scientists recommended it. Even the religious leaders have trust in the scientists.
Okay, I just want you to understand, if you wonder why I deeply hate and despise church leaders that have left their churches closed, there it is right there. Okay? You can rely on your chariots, you can rely on your horses, but I choose to rely upon the Spirit of God. And I can tell you this right now, I'm the one guy that everybody said would die from this disease. I've had it multiple times, and by God's grace, through his healing hand, he's touched my body. And I want everybody to also understand this, right? I will never, ever, ever, ever close the doors because of the fear of death. It will never happen, right? And when the scientists come to us and they tell us that it is something contrary to the word of God, I will always go back to them and say, check your science, because your science is wrong. Your science will confirm the creator of science, and that is our Father in heaven. So the reality of it is, may man be a liar and God's word be true. But this man, like the devil, is rejoicing in the counterfeit that he is creating. By the way, we saw this early on in the Bible. Look, when you saw the Pharaoh being confronted by Moses and Aaron, what were these guys doing, these priests? Oh, look at what we can create. Look at the counterfeit we can create, right? The devil's been doing this from the very beginning. Okay, you thought that was good? Watch the next one.
In future, we might see the first cults and religions in history whose revered texts were written by a non-human intelligence. And of course, religions throughout history claimed that their holy books were written by a non-human intelligence. This was never true before. This could become true very, very quickly, with far-reaching consequences.
So you understand what he's saying? He's saying over the years, people believe that their holy books were written by non-human intelligence, meaning God. And he's saying that's not true. But he's saying for the first time ever in human history, we will have our religious documents written to us by non-human intelligence. Okay? Do you guys understand how this argument represents an IQ of probably my shoe size? And I'm being generous. Do you guys understand that? Understand the circular reasoning that he's bringing here. Wait, you mean to tell me that the creator of the universe who breathed into me life is going to produce something in me less intelligent or more intelligent than what he is? It's an absolute absurdity. So you mean to tell me, and by the way, it makes sense why he's making that claim. If he believes we can be more complex than the God that created us, no wonder why he believes that AI can be more complex than us. Okay? He's a fool. He's a fool. I want to challenge all of you with something. We have lots of people that are fabricators in this church. We have lots of people, and I say fabricators, meaning like you do metal things. And any of you that build or fabricate anything, I challenge you to fabricate anything that is more complex than any part of your body, including the hair that's on your head. You won't be able to do it. It's impossible. The complexities associated with our human body, the Bible has a reason for saying we're fearfully and wonderfully made. You guys get this? Right? Okay. Oh, get ready. This one's, no. Yeah. What number are we on now? I lost track. What number? Guys, we're on 6. There's a reason why I named it 6. Watch this.
People could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century, is this ability to hack human beings, to go under the skin, collect biometric data, analyze it, and understand people better than they understand themselves. This, I believe, is maybe the most important event of the 21st century. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of...
He starts talking about elites gaining the power. By the way, I think this is like really important. I love going back to the words of Jeremiah the prophet that says we can't even discern our own hearts. So what do? We go to God who knows how to discern our hearts. This liar, being inspired by the devil, is saying, oh, you can figure it out. You can create something that will figure you out more than you know yourself. Can you think of a bigger lie? I'd rather go back to God searching out my heart, right? Okay, brace yourself because this is going to get even better. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Maybe in a couple of decades when people look back, the thing they will remember from the COVID crisis is this is the moment when everything went digital. And if this was the moment when everything became monitored, that we agreed to be surveyed all the time, not just in authoritarian regimes, but even in democracies. And maybe most importantly at all, this was the moment when surveillance started going under the skin. Because really we haven't seen anything yet. I think that the big process that's happening right now in the world is hacking human beings, the ability to hack humans, to understand deeply what's happening within you, what makes you go. And for that, the most important data is not what you read and who you meet and what you buy, it's what's happening inside your body. So we had these two big revolutions, the computer science revolution, or the infotech revolution, and the revolution in the biological sciences. And they are still separate, but they are about to merge. They are merging around, I would say, the biometric sensor. It's the thing, it's the gadget, it's the technology that converts biological data into digital data that can be analyzed by computers. And having the ability to really monitor people under the skin, this is the biggest game changer of all.
You believe that? One of the conversations we're having right now as YouTube creators, people that are doing stuff in the digital world, is we want to be able to understand the people that watch us better because we get thousands and thousands and thousands of comments every day. And what we're finding out is AI produces for us some of the greatest tools that we can find to better analyze what people are saying. But here's the rule about AI that everybody forgets. If AI stops being utilized as a tool, like a hammer or a wrench is used, then it becomes the tool that follows the hand of the enemy that destroys mankind, right? Think about it like this. All of you use AI in one way or another, you don't even know it, right? If you're walking with your phone, you use AI. If you drive a car that is anything newer than 2015, you're utilizing AI. They're tools, right? But when you carry over into the hackable human being realm, you begin to get into the demonic realm for a lot of reasons, right? All of this, by the way, is a campaign to make humankind cheaper. I will also say this, and I don't want anybody to start asking questions or getting crazy here, but there are pastors that utilize AI every single day to write their sermons. Yeah. I know of a couple in Calvary Chapel that do it, right? That won't last long, okay? It won't. God won't allow it. Not only will God not allow it, but you continue to worship another being other than the true and living God when you use tools like that to produce the kind of things that happen. We did an experiment. I think Dale, we may have done it on a live show once. Well, actually, on the nature of what we did, we kind of didn't. We took one of the sermons that we suspected was AI, and we inputted it into, I think it was ChatGPT or one of these tools that are designed to tell you if it was produced by AI. And on multiple occasions, it said inconclusive, inconclusive, inconclusive. When it says inconclusive, it pretty much means AI is probably in the middle of it, right? Typically, right? We put in a couple of sermons. Was it a couple of my sermons? I think we put in one of my sermons and one of Jack Hibbs' sermons in there, one of our Bible studies, and it said 100% certainty, no AI was used, right? Like, isn't that amazing? How the Spirit of God, and you could, by the way, there are thousands of guys in the ministry. You could input their sermons and it would say 100% no way that's AI, because the Spirit of God is still moving in our world today, okay? I just want you to understand that, right? But that's the direction we're going in, okay? Oh, it gets better. And I'm saving the best till last, okay? Let's go through the last few with him. Let's go to the next one.
Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale. Yeah, I mean, everything is being digitalized. Everything is being monitored. In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste, because a crisis is an opportunity to also do good reforms that in normal times people will never agree to. But in a crisis, you see, we have no chance. So let's do it.
You heard it right there. That's the philosophy of the World Economic Forum. That's the philosophy of the devil himself. Okay? All right. I told you I'd save the best for last. If you want to know what drives this demonic man, watch this video right here. 21 seconds. Watch it.
If you repeat a lie often enough, people will think it's the truth. And the bigger the lie, the better. Because people won't even think that, oh, it's something so big can be a lie. And I think that fake news have been with us for thousands of years. Just think of the Bible. But
you believe that? Do you believe that? Guys, I want to explain something before we move on to a couple of other things, because I'm going to put this all together for you, okay? I'm going to put it all together. When people come to me and accuse me of being extreme over the fact that I bring stuff like this up again and again and again and again and again, I want you to understand that the things that I bring to your attention don't even touch the surface of how serious this issue is. It's getting darker and darker and darker and darker and darker and darker and darker by the moment. The Bible tells us something interesting. I read it, right? I read it for you this morning, where it talks about the idea that the coming of the Lord will be as a thief in the night, right? Jesus in Matthew chapter 24 said something very interesting. Jesus said that in the last days, it will be as the days of who? Noah, right? He also brings up Lot, but we're going to focus on Noah here for a second. Here's the funny thing about the days of Noah, and I want everybody to understand this. Let's go through the visual picture of what happened in the days of Noah, okay? So that we can understand it. In the days of Noah, God goes to Noah and says, the world is wicked, and I'm going to destroy the world, Noah. And I want to spare your family, so this is what you need to do in order for your family to be spared. So what does he do? He builds an ark. Here's the thing that people don't think about. You do, because you come to this church, and many other people that are being taught the word understand this. The building of that ark took from the time God told them to build it to the time it was finished, at the bare minimum, 75 years. It probably took more than that. The people that surrounded Noah thought that Noah was a kook. Guaranteed. Grandfathers were telling their grandsons, I was your age when I saw that kook building that thing, whatever it is. He's a cuckoo. Don't listen to him. He says God's going to judge. There is no God. And he goes on and he says it again and again and again and again and again until finally something happens. They're in the midst of what might be the most dangerous time of the existence of the world. And what is the world doing? They're partying, they're partying, they're drinking, they're marrying, they're having children, they're buying property, they're selling property, doing all the things that you would expect the normal world to do. And they're continuing in their wickedness as though what they're doing is nothing wrong. And Noah makes a cry to them. Look at the ark I'm building. I'm putting animals on this thing. Y'all gonna die. They don't listen. What happens? The rain comes, right? The floodwaters rise and the whole world perishes. The whole world. God, in his grace and mercy, saves Noah and his family. Here's the thing I want you to notice, okay? For the unrighteous, that ark that was being built was a symbol of the judgment of God. For the righteous, it was a symbol of his grace and mercy. Right? It was a symbol of his grace and mercy. The Bible tells us that in the last days, it will be as the days of Noah. What does that mean? The world is going to be focused on things getting better. They're going to be focused on everything being okay. When in reality, there's a group of nefarious people who are doing everything that they can to destroy the world. They want to do it, and they're working extraordinarily hard to do it. I'm going to demonstrate this to you, because there's a couple of things that I want you to see that I think are critically important before we go over these last speeches by the New World, by the economic or the United Nations. But I want you to understand that when the president of the United States came into power in this country, he was used or continues to be used by God as an agent for judgment, not only on the United States of America, but an agent for judgment on the world. Understand this for a second. The United States is inconsequential in Bible prophecy. It is my prayer and it is my heart's desire that the reason why it's inconsequential is that so many of us will come to know the Lord, that there will be such a spiritual awakening that the United States of America becomes inconsequential by virtue of the fact that it is vacated from the rapture. Right? But it doesn't look like that's the possibility right now. It's looking in another direction. Now let's talk about Russia. Should we talk about Russia for a second? Because that is going to, and it's going to lead us into a discussion with the Middle East, okay? Because it all is tied in, all right? Understand that this discussion with Russia started with a mindset that has existed in this regime that we are to create a new world order, okay? It's very important that you understand this. And by the way, when you listen to the President of the United States talk about a new world order, you will hear him slip, which he does oftentimes. You will hear him talk about a liberal world order, which, by the way, is the most fanatical of terms. The New World Order is the kind of mellowed out version of that term. But he slips, he says it, and he's corrected immediately. Probably the people speaking in his ear. Correct him immediately. But look at what he says. And also, I want you to also to understand something. I want you to see this. In his speech, he's going to reveal to you that he is in the midst of a top-level classified meeting when this conversation is happening, which means he's talking about action or reactionary function for the world. This is something that he should not have told anybody that he was talking about. They were talking about calculating deaths and what is acceptable in that calculation. That's what they're doing here, okay? He let it slip. By the way, hard to find this video. It's very hard to find this video. I have it. But here we go. Watch this.
You know, we are at an inflection point, I believe, in the world economy. Not just the world economy, in the world. It occurs every 3 or 4 generations. As one of the top military people said to me in a secure meeting the other day, 60 million people died between 1900 and 1946. And since then, we established a liberal world order, and that hadn't happened in a long while. A lot of people dying, but nowhere near the chaos. And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it. We've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it. So anyway.
You guys get it? He was in a secured meeting. He said it. He's in a classified meeting, and they're having discussions about the liberal world order, right? If you think this isn't happening, the Bible says it. The Bible tells us that we're going to see it. So he makes this statement. From the very beginning, he's been doing this. I'm going to bring up one area. Can I just bring up one area where I think he's trying to bring in what we would call the liberal world order? Should we just talk about one simple area? Let's talk about Russia. Can we talk about that for just a second? Okay. As I told you before, the reason why Russia has gone into Ukraine centers around the discussion of the expansion of NATO. We talked about this. Putin was, in essence, forced to go into Ukraine. I'm not going to get into the specifics of this. I am not a Putin apologist. I'm simply an apologist of the truth, okay? I want everybody to understand that. I'm an apologist of the truth. He was forced to go into Ukraine. Why? Because with the discussion of NATO expanding, Ukraine was their #1 target to secure out of the hands of Russia. Why? Because within Ukraine exists an area that has been ignored by the rest of the world, and that is some of the most aggressive clandestine operators that exist in the United States of America. They're the ones that were believed to have started World War II. They're the ones that actually were the promulgators of so many other conflicts that have happened all over the world. And they are the ones, in essence, who have developed the science of doing what we saw Black Lives Matter do a few years ago. By the way, it's really simple. It's really interesting. When you have a moment, go and do the research on the symbols of Black Lives Matter, right? And some of the symbols of other Marxist movements that have existed, and they all have the same symbol, right? They all have the same Marxist symbol, which, by the way, was a function of a clandestine operation that existed in Ukraine prior to World War II called Operation Paperclip that created this type of social experiment that changed people. So the United States of America wants to defend the position in Ukraine, But if they cannot defend the position of Ukraine, they want to destroy the world order as it exists and create a new one. And by the way, this is just not the United States doing this. This is a conglomerate of people that are controlling all of this from happening. There is a literal group of people that are in the deepest, darkest parts of the world that are doing all of this. If you don't believe me, let me explain why this one is so bad. We push Ukraine, or we push Russia into Ukraine, and the moment Russia goes into Ukraine, you know what we do? We tell the whole world that we are going to sanction Russia by no longer allowing banks to do any business with Russia anywhere. Now, everybody darn well knows, including the handlers of the President of the United States, that if you do that, all you're going to do is make Russia more powerful. That's all you're going to do. You know that that's going to happen. Why? Because just like it did happen, the very moment you begin to sanction them from being able to spend that money, guess what Putin did? Putin said, hey, all of you guys that are in Western and Eastern Europe that depends upon my oil, I'm going to sell you all the oil. Now, we are at a sort of a lower production level because we're just beginning to rebuild the Nord Stream pipeline, right? So because we're at a limited production level, we're going to have to charge you just a little bit more. But we'll still sell it to you so long as you pay us in rubles. And guess what? They did, because they needed it. And Russia overnight became one of the most economically wealthy nations. That was for a short period of time, but they did. You know who one of the richest men in the world is, by the way? Anybody know? Putin. You guys know that? He's one of the richest men in the world. That's a whole other story. I'm not even going to get into all of the details related to that. So what happens? We end up going there. And then once that happens, we have another situation. At the beginning of the current president of the United States' regime, do you remember that he went to Russia? Actually, I think it was in Geneva, and he had a meeting with Putin. You remember that? And in that meeting with Putin, he told Putin, let's help each other out. I will give you permission to finish the Nord Stream pipeline that you were unable to finish because the former president of the United States wouldn't let you because he was trying to protect Eastern and Western Europe, so long as you can help me with things that are going on in the Middle East. Help me with the problem in Syria. Help me with the problem with the Yemeni Houthis. Help me with the problem that's going on in Afghanistan to fix the problem that I'm about to create in allowing Afghanistan to rule and to take over. Do you guys understand that who was in Afghanistan before everything fell apart over there? Russia and China. You know that, right? And Russia bought in Iran, by the way, just so that you know. Okay? So I want you to understand what's going on. So he gives him the permission to rebuild the pipeline. Then the president of the United States holds a press conference. And he says this. He says that we're going to deal with Russia and we're going to do whatever it takes to deal with Russia, right? Let's watch this.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
That's not a deep fake, folks. That's the president of the United States almost a year prior to doing it, saying that he's going to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. And we did it. The United States of America did it. You want to know why we did it? We did it to continue to destabilize the region. Now, here's the thing that's even more interesting. As the region started destabilizing, something backfired. And what backfired is NATO started collapsing. 2 years ago, Putin told NATO, you better off yourself or I'm going to off you, right? And NATO basically said, get lost. And I made a big deal of this. I made a video about this, warning everybody. And NATO pretty much said, get lost. The problem with that is, in doing so, right, they forced the situation to happen as it did, and it created the problem that was created. Now, the region was completely unstable, and it has gotten to the point where the United States of America has gone to OPEC, specifically to Saudi Arabia, and begged them to give us a break on our oil. Oil prices have gone up, right? The region starts to destabilize and destabilize significantly. really bad. Let me give you a glimpse of how much the region has actually destabilized, okay? We saw what happened with Gaza in Israel. That was inevitable. We knew something like that would happen. I think we were shocked at the level that it happened. And almost immediately after that, in a sign of solidarity, the United States moves 2 carrier groups into the region, right? By the way, not in the Persian Gulf like you would expect, but brings them into the Mediterranean directly. Let's take a look at the map of the region right now and tell you why this becomes really significant. The United States moves several carrier groups into the Mediterranean, okay? Now, I want you to put this together because I want you to see what all of this looks like, and it's very important for you to be able to make this understanding or this assertion as into how this actually works. The Mediterranean is the area that I want you to focus on for right now because it is a very important part of what we see happening, okay? When the United States of America moves itself into the Mediterranean, what in essence they are seeking to do is to bring back into control what they lost control of when they interacted with Russia and completely threw away control of the Middle East, okay? As a result of their position in doing so, people in the Middle East understand where America stands. They watched America run away from Afghanistan. They watched America not keep their word with respect to what they're doing with Russia, and they know that the United States of America, in their own minds, is weak. So I want you to look at the body of water where is Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia, if you kind of look at the map, you'll see the Mediterranean is, on your map, it's going to be up to the left, right? If you go downwards and you kind of cut through the landmass, right, you'll see Israel, right? And right below that, you'll see the Red Sea, okay? The Red Sea is very important to us right now because I want you to understand that the Red Sea is connected to the Mediterranean through a canal by the name of the Suez Canal. That is in Egypt, okay? And this is in the Sinai, right? You're talking about the northern area, all right? So keep that in the back of your mind. I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind for just a second, okay? Now let's talk about the problem that we have. And the problem is significant, okay? We are at odds with Russia. Not only are we at odds with Russia, but several years back, we destabilized certain portions of the Middle East. We not only destabilized Egypt, okay, and we helped destabilize Egypt by bringing in a group of people that were dominant called the Islamic Brotherhood, okay? So Egypt right now does not like the United States of America because what it did with respect to the Islamic Brotherhood, by the way, the biggest offshoot of the Islamic Brotherhood, at least right now as we know them, is Hamas. So if you look at the southern border of the Gaza Strip, which is Egypt, it is completely blocked off. Egypt will not allow anybody coming from Gaza to the south. So you have Egypt, who is not going to be cooperative with the tenets of the United States of America and how it carries itself through the Mediterranean, through the Red Sea, or through the Indian Ocean for that matter, okay? Or the Aegean Sea, or anything like that. The Aegean Sea, of course, is going to be further south if I can, I can't move this map, so I can't really demonstrate it to you. But anyway, I want you to understand what it looks like, okay? So, understand what's happening here. Egypt gets destabilized for a while. Islamic Brotherhood is kicked out of Egypt for the most part now because of the new president that's in there. He did a pretty good job of fixing the mess that happened in Shuarat al-Tahrir that's there in Egypt, right? But then another country got destabilized by the United States of America under the Clinton Secretary of State, regime, as you would call it, in a small little town by the name of Benghazi. And for those of you that don't know, Benghazi is in Libya. And with the destruction of the body of Gaddafi, okay, through him being actually assassinated, it completely destabilized the area of Libya, and Libya is in a full-blown civil war. Guess what? The side of the civil war that's winning and is going to win is controlled, influenced, and regulated by who? Russia, right? As Russia begins to take control of northern Libya, that means they have now began to position themselves for the most strategic position you can find, and that is the northern border of Libya, which is in the Mediterranean. If you can put yourself in the Mediterranean, you're in a better position than the Persian Gulf. Why are you in a better position in the Persian Gulf? Because if you put yourself in the Persian Gulf, then to the east you have your sworn enemy, which is Iran, and to the west you have somebody that isn't completely a sworn enemy of yours, but they don't like you. Why does the United States of America, why are they disliked by Saudi Arabia? Let me tell you why. Because if you look at Saudi Arabia and you go further south, as you're looking at the map, you'll see a country by the name of Yemen, right? And of course, further east from Yemen, you'll see Oman. Now let's forget about Oman for a second and let's look at Yemen. In Yemen, there is a group of people who are active proxies of Iran. They're named the Houthis, okay? They are a terrorist organization. When the president of the United States came into office, you know what he did? He declared, think about this for a second, he declared the Yemeni Houthis as non-combatants. Now, why is that a problem for Saudi Arabia and why is that a problem for Israel? Because Saudi Arabia has a bunch of American weapons that it purchased from America, but under the agreement that they will not fire unilaterally upon anybody that they declare to be non-combatants. So if they actively declare the Yemeni Houthis to be non-combatants, that means the hands of Saudi Arabia are being tied from being able to fire upon the Houthis using American technology. So what does Saudi Arabia do? Saudi Arabia gives the virtual flip-off to the United States of America a couple of years ago, goes to Putin before Putin goes into Ukraine and says, we're going to give you 25% of our defense budget, and we're going to do it right away because we're going to buy your fighter jets, we're going to buy your S-300, S-400 batteries, we're going to buy your ocean technology so that we can accurately and faithfully defend ourselves against the Yemeni Houthis. You know what Russia says? Russia says, you got it, Saudi Arabia. Not only will we sell it to you, we'll sell it to you at a darn near discount price, which they did. And not only will we do that, but in return for that, we will go to Iran on your behalf and we will shut the Yemeni Houthis down from affecting you and messing with you. Now, what happens when that takes place? Yemen then begins to take their focus away from Saudi Arabia and begins to put their focus on Israel and the United States of America. Right now in the Red Sea, what are we seeing? We're seeing the Yemeni Houthis firing upon the United States of America. And by the way, we just found out, literally, Happy New Year, we just found out that the United States of America just fired back. Okay? And here's the thing that's even more interesting when you stop to reflect upon this. If you look at the Red Sea right now and you actually destroy the ability for ships to go into the Red Sea, up through the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean, you destroy trade all over the world. And if you destroy trade all over the world, you destabilize the region so much so that the function that cash has all over the world goes bye-bye. And when it goes bye-bye, guess what, guys? You're going to see all kinds of desperate things take place. You're going to see wars. You're going to see rumors of wars. You're going to see all kinds of crazy things happening. And folks, I am only barely touching the surface of this nonsense, right? I'm not even going to get into everything and the effects of Bahrain and Qatar because of what's going on with Hamas. I'm not going to talk about the Persian Gulf. I'm not going to talk about the Gulf of Aden or the Gulf of Oman, both of which have cutoff points into trade routes that come off from the landmass that connects to the Persian Gulf to go all the way south and under, up through the Red Sea, and of course into the Mediterranean. I'm not going to get into all of that, and I'm certainly not going to get into the geopolitical implications of all of the world leaders that are watching all of this happening in real time and are beginning to get themselves in self-defense mode. And in that self-defense mode, you know what they're about to do? They're about to make peace in places they've never made peace before. And you know what they're going to end up doing? They're going to end up priding themselves in peace and safety and peace and safety and peace and safety, then sudden destruction. And when that sudden destructions happen, there's going to be one group of people that will fill the gap to make it all work, right? As Ezekiel 38 happens, and they're all destroying one another, and God steps in and he destroys all of them and he puts everything to rest. There will be one operational power that will be growing and increasing, and they are represented by the group of globalists who are looking for the New World Order. And you know what they're doing it in the name of, folks? Listen to me and listen to me good. They are doing it in the name of climate change. By the way, let me show you another picture. This is a picture, by the way, of Club Ks. I don't know if you know what Club Ks are. Let me show you this picture. These are Russian made, by the way. I want you to understand that. And if you understand how these missiles work, these are coming out of train carts, okay? And these have nuclear capacity in them. Not only do they have nuclear capacity, but they have the ability to pretty much go undetected and to be moved around in places that can't be seen. We believe to have thousands of these secretly embedded in the United States of America by or through companies that control our ports that are not U.S. interest based, okay? We have non-U.S. interest based companies that are controlling our ports that are allowing devices like this Club K. This is one of many, by the way. There's lots of them that are like this. And so if you stop for a second to realize just how unstable the whole world is, understand this, folks. When people tell you peace and safety, don't believe them. We are getting closer and closer and closer to the coming of Christ. It can happen at any moment, and things are getting crazier. Keeping that in mind, you've seen the map, you've seen these pictures of these Club Ks, you understand what they, by the way, the reason why it's named that way, it's kind of interesting. I showed you a video of, at the time, Prince Charles talking about, in essence, everything we read about in the Bible with respect to the Antichrist. I'm going to play that video for you. There's a few things I want you to pay attention that he says in this video. This is the one that's called Prince Charles. This is him speaking at COP26. I'm going to show you the video of him speaking at COP28. That'll be one of the last videos we play. At COP26, this is what he says, and I want you to understand this. Pay attention. He says we need to take advantage of a vast military-style campaign in order to marshal the strength of the global private sector. In other words, we need to transform the global private sector into a military force that will accomplish the purposes of the Antichrist. How do we know that? Because he says with not billions, but trillions at whose disposal? His disposal. What does his disposal mean? We don't know. And then he says at the end of his speech, it's the only viable way to produce fundamental economic transition. He says that at the very end. What he means when he says that is the only way to fix the world and the problem with climate change is to go cashless. He says this as well. I want you to pay attention. Far beyond the totality of the ability of world governments to fix the problem, and far beyond the global private, not the global private, the GDP, right? Far beyond the GDP of all nations combined. Okay? Think about that for a second. Okay? That is crazy if you think about it. The gross domestic product of all countries in the world, it's going to need more than that to fix climate change. Let's watch him. Let the tape roll. You'll see exactly what I mean.
Genuinely renewable and sustainable. So, ladies and gentlemen, my plea today is for countries to come together to create the environment that enables every sector of industry to take the action required. We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector. With trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders, it offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
He was serious when he said that. Let me show you what he said in COP28 as King Charles, and these are probably the last minute and a half of what he says here. Pay very close attention to what he says at the end, because I cannot think of a more demonic and satanic statement to make than the one that he made. And if you think this is not the spirit of Antichrist, I don't know what else to say. Watch this.
Ladies and gentlemen, in your hands is an unmissable opportunity to keep our common hope alive. I can only urge you to meet it with ambition, imagination, and a true sense of the emergency we face, and together with a commitment to the practical action upon which our shared future depends. After all, ladies and gentlemen, in 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do. So if we act together to safeguard our precious planet, the welfare of all our people will surely follow. And we need to remember, too, that the indigenous worldview teaches us that we are all connected, not only as human beings, but with all living things and all that sustains life. As part of this grand and sacred system, harmony with nature must be maintained. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth.
How do you like the globalist, neo-Malthusian, satanically, demonically inspired, ridiculous, pantheistic, Satan-worshipping comment that he just made? Do you want children being raised in that world? Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Catch this. I want you to guys get this. Jesus is coming soon. He can come at any moment. Let me read to you again what I read to you this morning, because it's very important. It's critical, guys. It's critical for us to understand this and to hear this. I read it to you this morning. I think it's really important as he exhorts the body, and he tells them this. He says what? He says, you are the children of light and the children of the day, and we are not of the night nor of the darkness. Here it is. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. He also says this in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. He says that the final Antichrist will not even be able to manifest to the world until Christians are raptured. Why? Because those of us that are filled with the Spirit are the restraining force that keeps it all from coming into fruition. That's what the Bible tells us. You understand that? That's what the Bible tells us. Ladies and gentlemen, body members of the body of Christ here at Calvary Chapel Signal Hill, it is time in 2024 to be the best educated in the Bible you've ever been, to understand the signs of the time, to wake up from the sleep that the world is in, and to speak the truth everywhere around you. I want to just let you know this. They're converging. You guys get it, right? They're going out of their way to silence the voice of Christians. They're making it illegal. And Prince Charles said something interesting that you heard him say just a second ago. He said it's critical that we do what? That we marshal the strength of the global private sector, a military-style campaign that marshals the strength of the global private sector. Let me give you an example of the global private sector going out of their way to shut the mouths of Christians. I want to say this for the record. I want to say that I'm grateful for YouTube, because YouTube has been the one place that God has used on a bunch of levels to speak to crowds wide and vast. I did not look at the total impressions for the year 2023, but I am guessing that we are rapidly approaching 25 million impressions on YouTube alone for 2023. That, just to give you, no, sorry, I'm sorry, 25 million views for 2023. We are rapidly approaching somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 million impressions. Okay? I want everybody to understand this. As grateful as I am for every tool that God has given us to preach the gospel, they're coming out of the woodworks everywhere to shut the mouths of Christians. Right. This is a video that a lot of people aren't paying attention to, but it's circulating amongst YouTube creators. And I want you to watch this, because this will speak volumes about what we're going to face in 2024. I want you to see this, and I want you to watch this. Here we go. Watch this.
Yikes. Before you tap share, hit pause. Finish the whole video and consider how it could affect others before passing it on.
They are spending a lot of money, time and energy and effort to keep people from using that tool or that platform as a way to get the word out to people that need to hear the word. Do you guys understand that? You're going to face it everywhere you go. Your work is going to tell you to stop. We are going to be in a world today that is going to meet the greatest resistance to speaking the truth.